Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's working. Okay. So, welcome to the first AI Lyceum. So, I made the AI Lyceum literally a month today. So it's been literally a month. I've called it Lyceum for a few reasons, which I'll go through in a second. But a Lyceum is a place where you can discuss and stuff. But I want to cut through the noise and make a place where anyone can raise any sort of question and talk amongst people who don't know lots to people who do know lots, and just have an open conversation and dialogue. So, the reason I called it Aeon is because an Aeon is an indefinite and long period of time, according to the Google definition of it from Oxford. And I wanted to call it Aeon because we're entering a new era of AI, right? Which is a massive change in humanity, because the internet was a big change, but AI is going to change the future of humanity. So if you imagine 1,000 years from now, AI is going to be very different. 1,000 years ago, we didn't have mobile phones, right? So you can imagine, even in the past 50 years, we didn't have mobile phones like they are today. So imagine in 1,000 years, we'll be in another universe, really, to be honest. So just to introduce myself, who am I? Well, I'm Sam Raj, or Sam as people call me. So I've had 10 years of experience in advertising. I've cut my teeth in all of the agencies. I've been to the House of Lords to discuss AI, and I participated in an Oxford course around ethics, compliance, and regulation. And that course was really good because they allowed us to become certified AI ethicists with Oxetica afterwards. So it was a really good course. It covered the EU AI Act, global regulations. It covered how to understand the risks and failure modes of AI as well, and how to look at the metrics behind looking at failures and robustness and fairness metrics. So how do you look at bias in your tools? And I think a lot of us are wrapping all of these key company tools as our own, but we need to understand the biases in those tools, and also the biases in how we fine tune those tools and represent them within our businesses and with our data sets, right? So that's me. And as a gift to you guys for attending, I've worked with Oxford University to get you all 20% off their courses. So I've got 6 courses: Fintech, cybersecurity, ESG, financial strategy planning, all the way through to the 6th one, which is the one I've just done. So all you have to do to get the code is subscribe to the newsletter. If you've already done so, then I'll give it to you personally. Just drop me a message on here or whatever, and then you'll get that 20% off. So you have to subscribe to their course between the 26th of August and 8th of October. So I'd strongly suggest doing those courses. They're really, really good, and they're really in depth as well. The one I just did took me 50 years, not 50 years, 50 hours of studying to complete. So a long time. I'll be older if it was 50 years. And yeah, thank you to everyone so far who's joined. So there's 270 plus businesses. I couldn't put them all in here. We've got Anthropic, TikTok, OpenAI, Google, Forrester. Most people are from my old company, WPP. So I'd say it's about 30 people in the LinkedIn group is from WPP. We've got publicists, we've got Oldie, Video Week, people from government are in here. So there's a massive group of people. The only thing is WhatsApp isn't as big as the group on LinkedIn. So if you can get people on WhatsApp, that'd be great. The link's going to be in this presentation somewhere. But within a month, we've gone to 350 plus people in one group, which is amazing. And I've got some things in the pipeline. I'll be speaking to companies, including Salesforce, Jessica on the call, who's interested in presenting. So we've got some good stuff in the pipeline. And I had a call this week with PwC. So let's see what happens. So the agenda for today is setting the scene, which I'll do in a second, why we're here, and then updates. And then the last bit will be for networking and questions from you guys. So first off with the purpose. So obviously, when it comes to these sort of tools, we have to have a purpose with the tools, but for the Lyceum, we have a strict purpose. So I like this quote from Helen Keller. It says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And there's lots of newsletters on LinkedIn, right, from different individuals, but I thought instead of me making a newsletter for people, why not bring everyone together? So instead of it being another newsletter in your inbox where you don't even check it, you just subscribe and leave it, I want to make a community where we're all sharing information. So that's the difference between a newsletter and a community. A community has a lot more weight behind it, and it has a lot more energy behind it as well, from my opinion, because it's a dialogue, not a monologue. So Lyceum comes from basically the meaning of a gymnasium. So in Athens, there was a Lyceum which Aristotle taught in. I've been to it myself. I went in 2023 to Athens I saw Socrates' prison as well. But it comes from the word Lyceus, from Apollo, the wolf god. And interestingly, Aristotle defined logic. So he's the forefather of logic as an area, and also analytics. So if you work in analytics, he's basically the forefather of the formalization of the term analytics. He created empirical studies and defined rhetoric as well. And I wanted to make this AI Lyceum a place for all of us to just talk about AI in any capacity, really, focusing ideally on being positive, driving ethics and responsibility across companies, so public, private sector, academia, and bringing it all together. Because at the moment, there's lots of separate areas, and we all need to gel together and work together to figure out frameworks and whatnot for the future. So, what's the purpose? You might know Plato, who's a famous philosopher who taught Aristotle. So there's 5 key areas. So the first is to partner. So partnering with you guys, partnering with companies, partnering with institutions, partnering with governments, look into the future. So figuring out what's the future of AI in both theoretical terms, philosophical terms, and practical terms, and how it impacts everyone. Because some of you here have children, right? Imagine in 50 years, your children are going to have a very different life, and AI affects brains, it affects development of people, it affects society, it affects dialogue, it affects how we talk to each other. So really important that we look to the future. Asking questions is important, and I think intellectual curiosity is really key. Thinking deeply. So thinking deeply about what it is we're trying to do before we do use these tools or implement these tools is key. And opening up discussions. So any of us here are experts. An expert in AI is really not really a thing for me at the moment, apart from people who built the tools themselves. So Jeffrey Hinton, for example, who created the artificial neural network, he's an expert. He created the structure behind these tools. They were very, like, in the masses, all of us have valid opinions, and I don't think we should limit ourselves to thinking we're not an expert because we don't code with AI and whatnot. All of us have the ability to become a specialist in whichever area we want to go into. So that's the rationale behind this Lyceum. And the main questions I want to answer in this Lyceum are: what is the value of AI? Is it sustainable? How do you deploy it ethically across the world and in businesses? What defines success and failure? Because everyone's talking about agentic and agents, but why are we using it, and how is it successful? And when do we define the success period? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it defined by employees? Is it defined by end users? Is it defined by revenue? How do we define success? And the last one is it profitable as well? So that's really key. And we're here to combine wisdom with AI. So there's a good quote by Socrates, which is basically focusing on having clarity, discernment, and wisdom. And I think artificial intelligence is good, but artificial wisdom is better. So the difference between intelligence and wisdom is intelligence is understanding, but wisdom is reflection on experiences and understanding what the consequences were. And then Aristotle's quote, which is a brilliant one: educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And I think knowing the tools is great, but understanding the implications of the tools on both yourself, society, businesses is really important, because at the moment it's a big hype, apparently, according to a lot of people, but I think it's here to stay. So like all things, they start off by growing and then they stabilize, and then over time they grow slower. So the mission really is to create a global community of AI enthusiasts, ethicists and policymakers, and anyone can join it. There's no elitism about this group. But the 4 key things I want us to encourage is open discussion, educating each other, introspecting, and having discussions around things. And I want us an area where we can publish things like podcasts. I've got a podcast coming up, which I'll share at the end, and have a community of people who just discuss this in great depth. So setting the scene, this is Google Trends. If you haven't used Google Trends, it's a way of looking at any keyword in the world by relevance, by interest. So on the x-axis, you can see 0 to 100. On the left-hand side, it says 100. It's quite hard to see. But on the right axis, you can see since 2022, November 30th, when ChatGPT came out, it boomed, right? You can see a massive increase in AI. And this is basically the start of AI as a big boom. ChatGPT was made public on this date. So there was an increase of 422% increase in the interest in AI, which I find fascinating. And now it's 100% index. So basically an index of 0 is nobody searching. An index of 100 is the maximum. So let's say there's 100 people searching, it's 100 at that point. So I find it massive. And AI is really nothing new. So Steve Jobs envisioned it. If this will work, let me see if it'll work. It's not seeming to play. Bear with me a second. That's strange. 1 second, guys. I don't know why it's not working. Let me just stop presenting and then share again. Apologies for that. It's not allowing me to do that one. Okay, here we go.
Do you know who Alexander the Great's tutor was for about 14 years?
Oh, no.
You know, Aristotle. And I read this, I became amazed.
Let me start from the start.
Do you know who Alexander the Great's tutor was for about 14 years? You know, Aristotle. And I read this, I became immensely jealous. Through the miracle of the printed page, I can at least read what Aristotle wrote without an intermediary. But at least I can go directly to the source material. And that is, of course, the foundation upon which our Western civilization is built. But I can't ask Aristotle a question. I mean, I can, but I won't get an answer. And so my hope is that in our lifetimes, we can make a tool of a new kind, of an interactive kind. We are now entering another revolution of free energy. A Macintosh, as you know, uses less power than a few of those light bulbs, and yet can save us a few hours a day or give us a whole new experience. And it's free intellectual energy. And so my hope is someday, when the next Aristotle is alive, we can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer. And someday, some student will be able to not only read the words Aristotle wrote, but ask Aristotle a question and get an answer.
So that was Steve Jobs in 1985. And I find it really interesting how he kind of prophesized it. Maybe they were inspired by him, but Google actually invented the pre-trained transformer, and then OpenAI made it generative. So without Google, you wouldn't have the brain behind GPT, but then without OpenAI, you wouldn't have the way that we can have dialogue and conversations with it, which is really interesting. Jeffrey Hinton is the person who invented artificial neural networks, which is the way that AI processes things. He thought using a human brain as a structure was the best way to do it. So he won the Nobel Prize, I think it was a year or two ago now, so quite late in his life, versus when he actually created the ANNs. But here's what he said recently.
Your Majesties, this year the Nobel Committees in Physics and Chemistry have recognized the dramatic progress being made in a new form of artificial intelligence. This new form of AI excels at modeling human intuition rather than human reasoning. Unfortunately, the rapid progress in AI comes with many short-term risks. In the near future, AI may be used to create terrible new viruses and who to kill or maim. We have no idea whether we can stay in control. But we now have evidence that if they are created by companies motivated by short-term profits, our safety will not be the top priority. We urgently need research on how to prevent these new beings from wanting to take control. They are no longer science fiction. Thank you.
So that was Jeffrey Hinton at his Nobel speech, which I find fascinating. He used to work at Google. He recently left Google. And we also have another recent video from him about being responsible.
Understand, is generative AI potentially an existential threat to the human species?
I think that's what I've been saying, yes. It really is an existential threat. Some people say this is just science fiction, and until fairly recently I believed it was a long way off. I always thought it would be a very long-term threat, but I thought it would be 100 years before we had really smart things. 50 years maybe. We had plenty of time to think about it. Now I think it's quite likely that sometime in the next 20 years, these things will get smarter than us. And we really need to worry about what happens then.
So that's Jeffrey Hinton again. And then we have, I just wanted to define what an LLM is and how it works. So a large language model is the models behind GPT, for example. and they use something called the transformer neural network in their model. And I just found a really nice video on LinkedIn about how it works. So this is what happens when you ask GPT a question. So that's how quickly it works. Imagine how quickly it works in real time and how long that video was. That's how fast it works, and that's how much compute power we need to program these things and to make sure that their compute power is as high as it can be. So I've come up with a nice definition of what AI is like, right? And I thought, what's the best analogy I could find? And it's like a car. So just like a car, AI needs to be steered. We need to know how to steer it. We look to the future through the windscreen, right? We have past data, which we train it on, which is the rear windscreen. We have a rear view mirror, ideally, to look back at what we've done. There are emissions associated with AI, right? We have GPUs and the AI supply chain, which causes increased water usage, electricity, and CO2 emissions. We have to be safe, so we need bumpers on it, right? We need a nice casing around it, like a car does, to keep us safe if we crash. And we must keep it stable. We must have a road, we must have a path for it. And I'd probably add to this that we need a traffic light system of stop, break, and go. So we know when we can stop using certain tools, when things should be retired, and understand the life cycle of products. But there is no license. So that's the only difference I can figure out between having a car or driving a car and using AI. We don't need to pass a test to be able to have a license to use it, which I think might be introduced in the long term, maybe in the next 20 years. So one of the reasons we're here, right, is to understand responsible AI and to perpetuate it. So Switzerland recently made a really cool model, which is built for public goods. And I think there'll be following countries will follow on from this and develop similar sort of models. So the tool from Switzerland is open and free. It's multilingual. It's extremely powerful, but it's responsible. So they focused on being transparent and having data protection in mind. And it's trained on a carbon neutral supercomputer. So when you're using computers, the way that computers process things, it leads to carbon emissions through the consumption of electricity, etc. So they've trained on a carbon neutral computer, and I think this will be the future, using green energy behind this supply chain. There is one thing that we need to remember as well when we're thinking about if it's responsible or not. We think AI is stealing, right, and it's taking ideas, but Disney introduced, I think it was in the 1980s, something called rotoscoping. So rotoscoping is recycling content. So the bottom one is Jungle Book and the top one is King Arthur, I think, and they use the exact same scenes. And AI is very similar to this. Is it's using stuff like rotoscoping did, and back in the day they thought rotoscoping is kind of broad and it shouldn't be used because it's not original content. But it's a similar sort of principle for AI, right? Obviously, it's a contentious topic. I see the reasons for both sides, but it's just interesting. And what else is interesting is AI is not a human being, right? And people say we need to have people plus AI, but what does it really mean? I created this allegory of the cave analogy application of AI because I like reading philosophy a lot, and I think it's nice to define it in this context. So Plato, who was an ancient Greek philosopher, who's what Aristotle said, there's a really interesting an allegory of how reality is perceived by human beings. So if you look at the left-hand side, we have people holding up artifacts. So people chained to a wall. These people are in an illusion of reality and what reality is. The shadows on the wall are giving them a picture of what reality really is, and they're storytelling using fire and these random symbols. But what happens is one day a guy leaves this cave and he goes outside of it and he sees reality. He then comes back and tells his shackled friends in the prison that reality is actually outside the cave and it's not those shadows on the wall which don't make sense. And they basically didn't believe him and they shunned him. So it's quite an interesting allegory for a lot of different aspects of life, but I like to apply it to AI. So how does it apply to AI really, you might ask? So imagine your mobile phone or a CPU or GPU in a computer is like the cave. AI processes in this finite amount of space, whereas we as humans, we can go outside. I can hold an apple, I can taste an apple, I can touch it, I can eat it. AI can't do that. Even if I label something an apple, it doesn't actually know what apple means. It's never experienced an apple. So AI is stuck in the cave. And the way that it uses data to learn, the data is like these artifacts, right? And on the wall is shadows. The way that it learns is it derives meaning from these data points, and it's called semantic meaning. And it's using sentential logic, so relationships between, let's say, sentences, to understand what it should learn. And what it really should use is our knowledge of the reality, the outside, the human condition, of our experiences. And between these two things, this is where you get true intelligence and true wisdom. That's my application of it. I first presented it in the IAB Europe's Great Debate on AI. And I think we're still valuable. We're still valuable because, like this quote says, nobody can steal your knowledge, nobody can steal your wisdom. And going beyond artificial intelligence is artificial wisdom, which I think will be a term in the next 20 years as well. And our experience as humans is irreplaceable. We're idiosyncratic, we're unique, and our intuition is magical. Intuition is something that we have never really figured out how it works, but it is based on the similar sort of structure to how our typical brain cells work, but we don't really quite understand how intuition works. At least I don't. So on that note, how do we keep people in the loop when we're managing projects, right? Well, there's 3 different ways. You've probably heard of the first one, which is human in the loop. Human in the loop is a human decides the end result, even though AI has recommended it to me. The next one I think is probably something that we should talk about more, is human on the loop. So human on the loop is AI decides what to do, but then we can always override it to keep things safe. And then the last one is human out of the loop. So that means that we automate things like, email newsletters, or I automated things on Luma to send a reminder for 5 minutes before this meeting. That's me being out of the loop after I create this workflow. And we need to remember when we choose each one of these, what the consequences are, and when is it relevant for us, because human in the loop isn't always necessary. You might say human on the loop is maybe always necessary, and human out of the loop might never be necessary, will never be useful. But do we really need AI for projects? So I've come up with this framework, which is quite widely known, with the 5 whys, but I've applied it to AI. So one of the examples is a fashion e-commerce brand wants to use AI, right? The first question is, well, why? First, why? We want to use AI because competitors are talking about it and the board feels pressure. Okay, but why are you feeling pressure? Well, the pressure comes from headlines and vendors pushing AI as a must-have for growth, all in the news. So why is that coming? Why is that coming through? Well, it's coming through because we're getting headlines and we lack an internal framework to separate hype from values. So why is that? Well, we haven't developed a framework because our AI knowledge is limited and fragmented, and we need to build an understanding. Well, why is that? Well, why does it matter? Sorry. Well, it matters because if we don't use AI, we're going to lose certain revenue opportunities, right? So the root cause of all of these reasons for AI in this instance is we need AI to drive business results for our company. and we need to prioritize use cases and make a decision on which use cases apply to AI, maybe by revenue, profit, or anything else. And the outcome of using AI in the right way here will be reduced overstock for the fashion vendor and improve margins. So if you use the 5 why process for deciding about which AI tools to use, and if you really need it, rather than just doing it for the sake of it, then it'll really help. So moving on to what ethics means and why we've got ethics in this form as a key component. Well, ethics comes from obviously the Greek word ethos, meaning character, custom, or habit, and I like the word character because character means a stamping tool with an emblem on something really. And I asked ChatGPT actually what ethics means for it. So here's a nice little video.
Ethics is just a set of moral principles that help us figure out what's right and wrong. And when it comes to AI, it's super
Let me just restart it.
important because these systems can have a huge impact on people's lives. We want to make sure AI is used fairly, safely, and in a way that benefits everyone. So there you go. Straight talk, forward thinking, and hopefully encouraging.
So that's what ethics is. I think ethics is more so understanding the implications of something on humans before you do it, and mitigating the consequences before they've occurred. So Socrates was approached one day by one of his acquaintances, and his acquaintance said, "I've got some gossip for you about a friend of ours." And Socrates said, "Hey, before you tell me, I've got 3 things to ask you. Is it true? Is it useful for me? And is it good? And if it's none of those things, don't tell me." And I think this is really relevant for AI, because before building a tool, or before promoting AI, or doing anything around AI, is the way that the tool is giving you answers true? Is it truthful? Is there bias in there? Is it good? Is it good at what it's actually doing for the company, or for us as people in general? And is it useful? If it's useful, good, and true, then maybe we can look at using AI. But if it's not useful, then why are we building it? If it's not true, then why are we using it? And if it's not good and it's bad, we're giving the bad outcomes, why are we not improving it or discarding it for now? So these are 3 questions which I think companies and people should start thinking about before deploying these tools. And it's good for any sort of product, really. So that's what Socrates said. But it comes down to the main reason why we're here, right? We're here because we want to look at AI ethics and impact. So ensuring that everyone understands what AI is, we can train each other, we can get guests in, we can do forums in person ideally. Understanding the ethical impact of AI. So how does it impact the brain? How does it impact people? How does it impact society? How does it impact you and me? Do we become lazier? How does it impact the sustainability of the planet? How does it impact the revenue of businesses? How do we create new economies? That sort of thing. So massive potential here. And on that note, when we do think about AI and being responsible, how do we control it? Because I saw a really interesting image on LinkedIn. It was showing 2 pictures of pies, right? The first pie picture is a pie cooked to 700 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. And the second picture is 60 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you'll obviously see the one on the left is burnt and you can't eat it. It's inedible. The one on the right is edible and it looks amazing. It looks delicious with some gravy. It's probably beautiful. But if you imagine AI like this, if you're going super fast and not thinking about frameworks and governance and guidelines, then you will burn it and you'll potentially have something that doesn't taste very nice when you actually try it in reality. No case studies are good. But if you're taking your time and understanding the way to implement it, the way to create it, the way to use these tools, then you'll come up with a golden ratio of sorts for it. But on controlling AI, the internet has a lot of fake content out there. So on the left-hand side, we can see basically a professor posted on LinkedIn the other week that they found 4 papers with their name assigned to them on Google Scholar, which weren't real. And then Martin Lewis, the guy behind moneySavingExpert.com, has loads of fake content that emulates him online.
Just hold in your mind that this video is fake.
Elon Musk presented his new project in which he has already invested more than $3 billion. Musk's new project opens up great investment opportunities for British citizens. No opportunities to and the interesting features of the app and having seen how it works.
Gosh.
It was aired on TV just to show the gravitas of using deepfakes and how much it impacts society. But I find it amazingly real. I couldn't tell the difference between that and a real video. There's also the CEO who's worried about this, which is Microsoft CEO of AI, and he made psychosis. I'll show you in a second who was impacted, but there are concerns that AI is seemingly conscious. So you'll hear the word SCAI come up quite a lot, seemingly conscious AI, which is AI that's conscious. But Jeffrey Hinton says that we don't really know what consciousness means, because if I replaced every one of my neurons with a fake neuron, or with a neuron that's not a human being's neuron, at what point am I not conscious? So Jeffrey Hinton doesn't sometimes think that consciousness exists. And there's a really good episode with Stephen Bartlett on the Diary of a CEO saying that he doesn't think that consciousness is a real thing. He'll think it's going to be retired. So that's an interesting point of view as well. But basically what happened was a guy called Hugh from Scotland was impacted by ChatGPT. He was dismissed by his employer wrongfully, and he decided to consult his oracle. And his oracle told him that if you make a book and you make a movie, you can make £5 million. And apparently this advice really impacted him, and this is where all of this controversy has come from using these sort of tools. But it also does impact the brain. So Massachusetts Institute of Technology made a study, or conducted a study, sorry, about the impact of OpenAI's ChatGPT on brains. And now this isn't just for OpenAI, it's for all AI tools, right? They're all very similar. But it showed that basically using AI tools can reduce your brain engagement and reduce your activation of some neural pathways. So basically what it means is the long-term impact of AI can increase your risk of dementia, for example, and impact your memory, for example, as well. So when we're using these tools every single day, the less we think, we just give our thinking to it, it impacts our brain's health. Imagine like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym and you don't exercise, you're going to see a change in your body and in your fitness. So the more you think about things yourself, the more you'll have a different brain than if you don't think as much. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation, I think, in the next 10, 15 years, because the impacts on, let's say, children growing up with these tools right now, in 15 years' time, we'll see a difference in the way that their brains are being developed. And certain neural pathways might not exist, or they might be reinforced, depending on how they're using it. So it's a really important conversation for me. And on that note, OpenAI introduced a psychologist. So they introduced a forensic psychologist to figure out how AI tools can impact people and try to I saw this on my GPT. I was probably chatting to it for too long for this PowerPoint, but it's that you're able to set timelines. So every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 day, 2 days, whatever it may be, check in, give me a bump or stop me from using the platform. And it's probably the start of something where we're figuring out 3 different areas: sustainability, impacts on humans, and overall ethical principles through legislation as well, which I think is a key one. But there's also another area which I think is quite interesting, is that the sustainability of AI hasn't really been reported on as much until this week. So Google did a really good study that showed Gemini's text query, so prompting Gemini, is equivalent to watching 9 seconds of TV. So if you prompt it just how much TV you watch, it equates that. But what they haven't mentioned is that people probably are using Gemini whilst watching TV. So you'd have the amount of 9 seconds plus. So if I watch TV for 9 seconds and I give it prompted 9 seconds, I've got 18 seconds worth of watching TV's electric consumption, right? So if we're using 4 or 5 different devices, we're consuming so much electricity, and it's also going to increase our bills in the long term, right, by using so much. So what I'm recommending is using model cards. So model cards are cards for each one of your models that you use, and developing details, intended uses, the factors that will affect the model. Maybe you've trained it on a specific data set from, let's say, England. It's going to be biased towards England, right? And even though it's just trained on England's data, and it's scent, when it tries to find that scent, it'll be laser focused towards that scent. It won't understand or think about other scents for that period of time. Similar to AI. I didn't create this model card. I got it from a website, but I put a link down below. And I think one of the key ones is looking at ethical considerations of these tools. So how does it, how do you understand bias? How do you understand fairness? How do you measure the robustness? So how often is it right? A lot of companies might not at the moment be aware of how much it's right or how much their employees are impacted. Are they running studies? Are they looking at A/B tests of before and after using AI, or human-based study versus an AI-based study in a company, or just generally how they feel after using AI tools? It's really important. So these model cars are going to be the future of AI and making products, and I think it's really important for us to all start using them. So that's everything from the presentation so far. I've got some updates, so stay tuned for the next couple of minutes or so. The first update is I've got podcasts in the pipeline. I'll release one in a second. I'll talk to you about it. It's a really good one. I've made a newsletter as well. So the website I've built has HubSpot on there. So if you sign up, you'll keep up to date with newsletters and have exclusive content. I built 3 custom GPTs. They're all free for anyone who's using ChatGPT to have access to. Each of these Lyceums is going to be one a month, ideally, at the moment. So 1 Lyceum a month, and each will have a theme. And I'll talk to you about the themes in a minute. I've made a WhatsApp group as well. So if you scan this Linktree link, you'll have access to every single main link. So I've got links to be a presenter, links to be on a podcast, a link to the LinkedIn group, link to WhatsApp, link to Slack. So Slack community is live as well. And we can create different sub-communities. So it's a joint thing. It's not just obviously me creating these things. It's you guys as well contributing. YouTube's also so if you can subscribe, that'd be great. I'm going to put podcasts on there. I'm going to ID and the GPTs I mentioned, the 3 GPTs, I built them literally in the last 2 days. The first one is just a general assistant for ethics, compliance, and governance. So I programmed it so that it gives you advice on EU's AI Act, NIS2 directive, any sort of laws around the world, global regulations, and it also searches the internet for any latest ones for you. And it's also got safeguards in there. So I've told it to be careful about how it communicates and has an ethical stance on everything it gives to you. The bias assistant's a bit more focused on bias. So you can ask any question you want and it'll give you an analysis of it. So let's say you write an article and you don't want to post it on LinkedIn or anything yet. Run it through this and it will tell you the bias level of the different factors. So maybe demographic factors are in there. Maybe you've got bias in terms of the way that you word things, or maybe there's a bias towards certain companies in there. I don't know. But if you try the bias system out, it will detect all of the biases. It will figure out ways to mitigate any sort of biases that you're perpetuating. And it'll also give you advice on different acts as well. And then the last one, this is probably my favorite one because it's just so cool. So people have all of these bold the lines posts, right? I've created a tool generation based on which is a different structure. So it's basically really dynamic in that sense, and all of these are free. So all you have to do is click on this Lyceum link. It's a site, by the way, so you can click on this link here, the ailyceum.com. I've tried to build it as fast as I can for this Lyceum, but it's got an about section, it's got the tools, it's got a quiz for you just for fun, resources around what you can read. So it includes the paper called Attention is All You Need, which is how the GPT transformer model works. Events are in there, so the Aeon event is in there as a integration, and we've got a contact page as well, so you can email us directly, or email me really. And then the big announcement is OpenAI signed off a podcast. So it's taken a couple of weeks, but OpenAI is allowing me to interview one of their go-to-market leaders around their tools. And this leader basically works with companies to integrate across 50 different clients. I think it's just in the UK and maybe in EMEA. But I want to ask this person questions around go-to-market strategy, tips of using AI tools with OpenAI, the strategy around AI and productizing it, and also ethical guidelines and sustainability. So if you have any ideas and any questions you want me to ask this person, please send them across, and I'll be filming or recording the podcast. It'll be virtual in September time, and then hopefully it'll go live in September if I can get it signed off by OpenAI before they can get live. So that's basically everything from me. Just want to say thank you. Don't forget to use your Oxford code if you sign up to the newsletter. Please, if you can, we've got obviously a LinkedIn group if you can join it. Tag us in it on Friday. On Monday if you can. Not today; it's too late in the day. And then the second thing is I've made a PayPal. So this at the moment this is just a passion project. But I want to try and make some amazing events for everyone. I want to try and get NVIDIA in here, OpenAI in here, Google DeepMind to present, other companies. Everything will help me. And yes, thank you very much for support. That's everything for me from the presentation. So we can go back onto the Google Meet, and then yeah,
That's amazing.
Questions now. Thank you.
Sam, Helen has a
Oh, is it
question.
frozen?
Yeah, it's freezing a little bit.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Hi, Helen. I can see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Oh, is it my internet not working?
No, I can hear you, Sam.
If you have any questions, please can you write them in the chat because I can't hear anyone at the moment for some reason.
We definitely can hear you, Sam, so I don't know if it's a connection issue on Helen's side.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Virginie, do you want to introduce yourself? Because you're messaging in the WhatsApp quite a lot. It'll be good to hear from you, just for everyone. And I think your energy is really great.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sam, very much for your presentation first. I think it was fantastic to hear where you want to take the AI Lyceum. I think it's a great community already, and I cannot wait to see how we're going to shape it and how it's gonna move forward. So very much looking forward to hearing about the direction and hearing from everybody here to see where we're going to take this group. Hello, very nice to meet you all. I would consider myself a novice in AI. I don't know much about it. I understand the principles of it in how it works, but I've never coded in my life. And what I'm interested about is how do we actually integrate AI responsibly within businesses and how we can actually make the most of it, but in an ethical way and in a sustainable way. So I'm very much excited to hear about all of you experts, and hopefully I will bring something of value in this group of very, very highly specialist people.
Yeah, thanks, Virginie. And we've got Sarah. I think Sarah wants to say something. Oh, it keeps on freezing. I think there's something going on with the internet. Sarah, did you want to say something? I love your aerial picture from the mermaid, by the way. It's pretty cool. Go on, Helen.
I think it's Friday. I think the computer's given it a ghost.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'll give it a couple of minutes for any questions. If there's no more questions in like 2 minutes, then I'll end the meeting. But I think Helen's going to send a question through. I can't believe the internet. Selena, is mine okay?
You keep coming in and out, Sam. I mean, the majority of the time it's been fine, but towards the end it's been cutting out a little bit.
Oh my God.
Sam, there's a question in the chat as to whether you're going to share the
That's
slide.
crazy. Okay.
Can you hear that? Did you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
There was a question in respect to the slides. Will you be sharing them in due course?
Yeah, I'm going to try and share the slides and also the recording on YouTube. So I need to, I've done loads of animations, so I need to make the slides a bit more concise, and then I'll send them across. Yeah, definitely.
Amazing.
Okay. Sergio, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Sergio, please send on WhatsApp. Yeah. I'm gonna reply to it. Yes, Sergio, please. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Helen G as well. Selena, I'm going to end it here because my internet isn't the best.
That was really good, Sam. Thank you so much for putting this together and taking the time. Your motivation keeps us motivated, and I think there's so much that we can all learn from each other, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our knowledge. So I look forward to hanging out with you guys more. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
Cheers, guys. Have a nice weekend. Yeah.
See you later, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.